Well, hello, hello. Hope everybody is doing well. Welcome to the October 17th edition of Southern Fried DNN. Woo-hoo!
Everybody.
Represent, represent, represent. We've got a little bit of a switcheroo, so I'm actually showing the next three events, including tonight's event here. We originally had the utilizing DNN CMS in 2024 scheduled for tonight, but due to some scheduling conflicts, we needed to shift that out to next month. So if you thought you saw that, you're not losing your mind. It really happened, and we really did a switcheroo on you. Sorry about that, but we slotted in Ryan Moore is going to be speaking with us tonight about a cool. I don't even want to pretend like I know what you're going to talk about, but I'm going to read the title: Migration, Investigation, Sleuthing, and Troubleshooting a DNN Instance. Something
Yeah.
else at the end, right? Okay. Um, and then I'll go ahead and give an advanced announcement of the December year-end party for Southern Fried DNN, and I think Ryan is going to be hosting DNN Jeopardy again. So that's one of the favorites. There's multiple DNN-esque kind of game shows that Ryan has done over the years. Let's see, DNN. What is it?
We've done
$10,000,000,000 pyramid,
that's
whatever that
right. Yeah,
is.
$100,000 pyramid or $10,000 pyramid, and
Yeah,
we did a Family
and
Feud once or twice.
Family Feud,
But
that
Dan
was
and
fun.
Jeopardy, you can never go wrong. It's a favorite, and it's easy to set up and easy to play.
Yeah,
So
that one
that's
seems to flow a little bit better. The Family Feud, man, I tell you, when they started feuding, it just got out of hand really quick, right? Just
Cassidy's
kidding.
team was vicious.
But not a lot of fun there. So be sure to join us there. And we may even try to pull off a little bit of in person if anybody's going to be in the area. I don't know, just throw it out the idea there, Ryan. We can
I think that'd
maybe
be
schedule
nice.
it in person or something. We might be able to even be able to do that next month. We shall
Mhm.
see. So if you're ever in the Charlotte, North Carolina, north of Charlotte, North Carolina area around the time of the event, feel free to let us know and we will make it happen to be in person. That'd be cool.
What's that?
So, a few announcements in the community, and I didn't really prepare too much for this, so I'm going to wing it a little bit here. So, if I miss anything that is important that I just don't know about or don't think to mention, please chime in. Anybody that's attending live, by the way, it's good to see everybody live tonight. Jim and Jeremy and Steve and Mark. Good to see you guys. Well, almost see you. I can't see everybody. Some of you are the black square with white writing, but that's okay. And Daniel, good to see you. Okay, let's see. So if you have been living under a rock, you may not have known, but there's been a relatively new release of DNN 9.13.4. Patch release, some maintenance items in here, bug fixes, some enhancements that happen. There's actually quite a few little enhancements in here. I think we highlighted these last month. So if you're watching on YouTube or want to go back and learn a little bit more detail about those, or if anybody wants to highlight any of these here, we can do that. But you can check out last month's meetup on YouTube on the Southern Fried DNN YouTube channel. Let's see. That was done. And everybody wants to know the big question. When is DNN 10 going to launch? We have a definitive answer for that tonight.
I don't know
Can you
that
believe
anyone's
that?
interested. You've had people ask you about that? I don't
Wait,
know.
Uh,
definitive?
yeah, we have an absolutely definitive answer for that tonight. You
Do I
ready
feel
for it?
I
Drum
feel a
Ready
roll,
for it.
sarcasm
Ready?
set up.
Ready. When, David,
drum roll.
when will DNN 10 be ready?
Ryan, I'm glad you asked. Soon.
Way!
No, I say that a little bit in jest there, but as you know, DNN is an open source platform with contributors that are giving freely of their time and resources to be able to help further the platform along. And we appreciate all of those contributions and the time that people spend on it. And sometimes things just get a little busy and we don't get done what we think we're going to get done in the time that we think we're going to get it done. So it has been, I guess you could say, delayed, but then again, hey, there was never really a hard commitment anyway, because, well, this is open source and it gets done when it gets done. We're
It's
all excited
delayed, but it's
about it.
moving forward. That's the
It
best
is.
part.
It is moving forward. It's hard to see unless are a GitHub stalker, which we encourage everybody to be, by the way. Come out and stalk GitHub and see what's
Me,
going on.
I stalk.
And I mean, speaking of contributions, I mean, here is an example. And Jeremy, do you mind if I put you on the spot a little bit?
Uh-oh.
I mean, in a good way. It's in a good
All
way.
right,
Do you
go ahead.
mind?
Yeah, a little scared.
Sure.
Would you mind sharing recently, like you recently went down a rabbit hole trying to fix something, right? And you found out. I think this is an important story because not because it's like rocket science or anything like that, but it's a great example of you spend a bunch of time on something and you find something that's like it seems like it's trivial and it's not a big deal, but it really is a big deal. So you mind sharing a little bit about what you did?
Well, which one? There's like 3 or 4. Are
The
you talking
one
about?
character change that you did
Oh,
recently is the one I
God.
was
All right.
really
So
thinking about.
this will be in the list of fixes in 9.13.5, I guess. But can you show it real quick somewhere? Do
Yeah,
you have a logged
do
in
you
site
Yeah, let's look at
do
it.
you
on
have an idea
pages?
of where
It's
the
in the
issue is?
recently
Yeah.
closed ones.
Oh, recently closed. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been merged.
So
Oh, this one
basically,
here.
in pages,
There
there's
you
a
go.
big obnoxious plus sign on the page if you try to go to SEO settings and add a URL. And this happened because of a bump in a version number of one of the dependencies. I think it was
SVG
CSS loader,
loader.
SVG loader, one of
Yeah.
those. And all that happened is as a result, when you used the JavaScript that goes into the React for styles, was originally done with dot add, capital letter A, add item row, and that
Mm-hmm.
resulted in a class getting attached. And somehow that bump in version number made it so that styles dot, and it was lowercasing the first letter, so the style wasn't found, and the entire class wasn't being applied. You know, the React styles that come with little hash,
Yeah.
whatever. Anyhow, that's an over explanation, but I stumbled across it, found it, fixed it, and I'll get the update in shortly. I don't have the actual merge in there yet, though, but it's coming no later than Saturday.
Okay, here, yeah. Well, no.
Yeah, no,
Actually, it is
that's close
merged.
enough. There it
There
is.
we go. All
Just
right.
that lowercase, that one letter A, recompile, and it went back to, if you scroll down a little more, the way it's supposed to look.
Yep.
Yep. And there's plus sign there. So the reason I wanted to point this out is because, okay, first of all, Jeremy, thank you for spending the time to figure this out.
Rabbit hole.
It's really cool, but you think something's going to be really simple sometimes, and you end up going down a rabbit hole. And, that probably took you quite a bit of time to figure out what was really going on because it wasn't obvious, right? It was just like,
No.
okay, something is
How many people
just
besides
off
me
here and
stared
why?
at that and didn't notice? I
Yeah.
almost didn't.
Yeah.
Yes,
So it's
because
like
I
dig.
updated those versions and the way to import them changed, and I found all the places and changed them,
The
and
change looked
yeah,
perfect.
didn't notice the casing on this one. Yeah.
So like you get to the answer, right? And you realize it's one character change. Is this really important? How do I go about doing this? And you may find yourself in a position of feeling like it's not as valuable as it really is to actually do that, right? Or you go, I don't know, maybe, I mean, should we just put this in something else? What? No, no, no. It's really important. It doesn't matter if it's one character or 1,000 characters that your change is, if it impacts the user experience, like in this case, right? I mean, it's really important. It doesn't matter if it's one character or 1,000 characters. So no matter how big or how small your contribution is, it's always welcome. And we really appreciate that. So thanks for letting me put you on the spot there, Jeremy. I didn't
You're welcome.
didn't really ask you that, but that was
Well,
really cool.
I've whined about it a little because
Yeah.
it did probably take me over an hour all told, but um, it was also fun, and it was also a learning experience because, as you've noticed lately, I've been trying to force myself to be able to do this stuff. And it's not as hard as I thought, in case anyone's actually listening.
Jeremy,
But
you
To
were
this,
also
actually-
but this,
sleuthing.
this isn't surprising at all. How often do you have a problem and you work like hell on it, and it means you change 3 lines of code, and
I
then your
know.
spouse comes and says, "What did you do today?" "Oh, I wrote 3 lines of code," and goes, "What? 8 hours of work for 3
Oh, I
lines
love-
of code?"
I love
know?
telling the clients it only took 5 minutes to fix, but it took me 4 hours to figure out.
Yeah.
But they don't want to pay for the 4 hours. Oh, did I say
Or-
that publicly? Damn it.
Well, that's exactly what I was just thinking. We just had this conversation today. It's like, you take time to really think through something and give the right answer, instead of just giving an
Yeah.
answer that you blurt out, right? Well, it took you time to kind of figure that out. It's like, oh, you're going to charge for that time. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, it took that time, it's like, yeah, but it's only 5 words that you wrote in a sentence. So, yeah, I know, but yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's really valuable. I just wanted to use that as an encouragement, for anybody wanting to jump in, to go ahead and try to jump in, and maybe you'll find a 1 character change in the end, and then yeah, it's not too bad of a PR to do. You could actually do it in the browser, and feel pretty confident about it, because that that's what needs to change, especially when you document what's happening too, like Jeremy does. It's really cool. So I found that inspiring. Thank you, Jeremy, and anybody
Sure.
else that is doing similar work all the time, like that. Let's see, over on the community side, I wanted to there's always activity over here. It's so much activity in the forums over here that I personally have had a hard time keeping up lately, because I've just been too busy. But be sure to kind of subscribe to some of these, especially the forums that are of most interest to you. There's features here to where when you log in with your account, you can actually subscribe to the forum. That way you get notified via email whenever there's any activity in that particular forum. You can subscribe to individual forums, and threads in there. So a lot of cool features. They've been improving that over time, the UI and the user experience and some of the back end stuff, and it's just getting better and better over time. So it's
And noteworthy improvement for the forums, there's a digest feature. So if you go into your settings, you can get like a summary every 4 hours or every day or something. So you're
That's
not
awesome.
bombarded.
yeah, I'll
I
show
just
that. 'Cause
Set it up
that's,
recently, and it's really a big time saver.
So
A
if you go
once a
into
week
your
digest would be nice.
Yeah.
is that it? No, that's not it. It's in, where's that at, Daniel? Do you remember?
Is it my settings?
That's where I thought it was, but I don't see it here.
Subscriptions.
Maybe it is in subscriptions. Well, that's my
No.
subscriptions, which I
You really
subscribe to
did
about
subscribe to
everything.
everything.
Yeah, really did. And I don't think
Oh,
it's
I
control
think
panel with it. That's
I think it's in the journal. The forum uses the journal, but they've recently been updated to respect the.
oh yeah. That's right.
Yeah, I think
So
it's in
if
the
you go
journal.
on the home, well, you go into your personal profile, and then go into, what is it?
Activity
Activity
feed.
and that's where you
I have to admit, you guys are
are.
confusing me here.
You gotta
And
click on
yeah,
edit
I've
profile.
done it recently. I'm trying
Edit
to
your
remember
profile.
now.
You gotta find
Uh,
it.
And then it's here
Yeah,
under communication.
communications or communications, I think. Edit
Email
delivery
deliver
schedule. There
schedule.
we go.
There it is.
So
Okay,
the
that
forum
is a little
uses this
hidden.
now.
So let me do that slow again for anybody that's wanting to see it, because you would probably never dream that this is related to the forums, but it's really the journal, right? On here. But if you are in the site, logged into your account, you click on your name up here, and then once you get there, you can go to edit your profile, and then go to the communications tab, and then expand this, because by default that's going to be collapsed. Expand it, and then you can change your notifications frequency for, notification stuff, as well as message digest. And that I've got it set up so if anybody responds to a forum post that I'm subscribed to, it's just going to instantly send me that message. You may not want that. You may want a daily or a weekly digest or something like that. So it's nice.
I find it shocking that that is connected to a module.
It's
Never
not
seen anything
literally
like this
connected to the
before.
module. It's just that the
Oh.
forms writes to the journal. So
I'm
this
just
is
completely
really good.
surprised. I feel that needs some on-screen documentation and help and explanations.
This
I
is
would
an
Wow.
old this is an old element of control for your communications that came out when Journal was released. So that was DNN 7 or early 8. I'm trying to remember.
And for
But
those
this
that don't
is
know what journal is, we're talking about this feed
Yeah.
here that basically any module can write to if they wanted to, you know, code wise, and
kind of
the
allowing
forum
you to
is one of
create
them.
a my wall type of thing, which is all the things you've participated in, and then you're also able to put little blurbs that you can use to put in information for community sites or pages where you might sites where you might have a my page type of thing. It's very popular.
So what I call this is that 1 week and a half in 2012 where somebody said out loud, what if we had some Facebook features to DNN?
That is correct. Yep.
And then that
That's
next week and a
correct.
half, somebody did it, and here it still is.
I believe it came along in DNN 6 with some of the social stuff, if I'm remembering correctly. Or it evolved to that point. I think it may have existed before then, but that's when it really became a little more useful for sites
Here
like
it looks
this.
very nice.
Yeah. Let's see what else. All kinds of stuff out here. Just, you know, you can use these resources to your liking. Let's talk a little bit about DNN Summit.
Hit that one blog post for me though.
I was
on,
just
DNN.
going to
yeah,
say that
sure.
there's a good new blog post.
So one of the things I'm trying to do is answer questions that I have to make blog posts about questions that I have to answer repeatedly. And it seems like right now is a season in which every month, 2 or 3 times in the last several months, I have been talking with IT administrators, different server and host folks who have had DNN instances for many years. They're either on Evoke or they're on DNN Community, and they've been there for 8+ years. And they get a new graphics team or a new marketing team in, and they say, big announcement, everyone, we're going to make a brand new website and we're going to put it on a new platform. And my first questions to the administrators are things like, wow, really? So the marketing team is going to be doing that. So you're not just going to refresh what you have in DNN? No. The marketing team is going to build this. Okay, well, what are they going to? They're going to build it in the platform you expect them to build it in. And so then you say, oh, so they're planning to build in all that Active Directory authentication? No, I don't know if they know about that. What about the systems that connect to all your external file shares where you have structured content listing your files? Oh, I guess they're going to have to rebuild that. Oh, well, what about the forum? Are they going to import all of the forum blog, forum articles and back and forth? I guess so. Can you make an export of that? I mean, they hop to an idea that old means it needs to be thrown away instead of refreshing, your site regularly. And so the first blog post that I put in a month or so ago was the start of this to say, you don't have to throw away your DNN instance. I am tired of seeing corporations throw away the investments and the training and the knowledge that they have to just start brand new every few years. Instead, they should look at using the platform more because they often don't use all the features they have anyways, and refresh and update and do new, but stay on platform and keep their long-term investment. So this second blog article takes a lot of the bullet points that I have seen out there. And some of them are silly. They're knee-jerk reaction type things that people will say, and they'll say, oh, well, DNN is more than 10 years old. Yes, that's true. So is your house. If you have a well-built house, do you throw away your house because it's 10 years old? And they say, oh, well, we're going to move over to this other platform. And I say, well, WordPress is also over 10 years old. In fact, it was made just a few months after, DNN version 3 was released. So, what are you really trading? Oh, well, that's new. So is DNN. I think that people are just not thinking correctly. So you'll find in here bullet points. My audience for this is all of us. Every one of us who deals with, loves, and uses DNN as a platform. Here are some food for thought and bullet points and things you can share in conversations with others to talk about why you should consider staying on platform and Hopefully we can save some corporations from throwing, at a pop, hundreds of thousands of dollars away because they just want a graphic design refresh.
Cool.
It's amazing to me what these companies who switch go through, because I had friends where I stay in touch. I've had a park district, for example, switch to WordPress, and the aftermath of that has not been not gone well for them. And there's not much I can do, not involved at all anymore, but I do hear things and I'm like, oh wow, that never should have happened. How did they not know? And also the churn in the industry in other areas, like if you go into the modern stuff and do React and all the modern or app type front end stuff which people are doing, or use Astro, the feature churn is scary. And then, of course, we always get to bring up the fun WordPress drama of the last few weeks, which I'm sure I'm not the only one has been enjoying reading about.
Yeah,
Silence.
yeah. So enjoy would probably not be the right term I would use to describe it, but yeah,
Enjoy like you enjoy reading news.
yeah, it's painful to
It's
watch
scary.
for
It's
any
actually
open
scary.
source community. So yeah, if anybody's interested, just Google WordPress drama and you'll get all kinds of crazy stuff going on over in that world. Potentially some good opportunity for those outside of that space too. So
To show
be
stability.
good, be good to kind of be aware of those things, because I mean, really any open source environment, there's a lot of similarities shared, between those, or should be shared, so just seeing some of the things that have happened there is pretty mind boggling, that that can happen. So yeah. So DNN Summit, coming up in February the 3rd and the 4th, both virtual as well as in person, in Las Vegas. So if you haven't made plans for this, please be sure to do so. You can come out to dnnsummit.org and click the register button, whether you're attending virtually or in person. Go ahead and do that. You can also get information for booking your rooms in Vegas there, be at the Cosmopolitan this year, so it should be good and central to a lot of fun times around. So come on out and hang out with some DNN people. It's gonna be great to be back in person. I mean, this first time since 2020, right?
That is
So
right.
I don't know if we're gonna know how to behave, honestly. I'm sure it's gonna be fun.
With the registrations, one of the things that everyone is encouraging right now is please plan out and book your rooms. That when we've been other places, and perhaps before 2020, it was a little bit different. It wasn't as terribly impactful if you booked a room around the corner or did something different. But here, the amount of space that we have, the preparation for our physical in-person rooms, some of the meals that we're going to be planning after dark party kind of things, they're all directly impacted by how much we make our room block. And we have a projection of a number of rooms that we expect that DNN Summit attendees are going to book. So we just really need to encourage everyone, please book with the room blocks. Please book through the website. If you've booked already and you did not do so through the website, but you're at the Cosmopolitan, let us know what room numbers you're in and what name it's booked under, because we're still able to get credit for that. It's just that we need our attendees to be in that hotel to make some other bonus concessions and things be present for us. So we're really excited about the opportunities there. We want to make the most of them.
And I'll say this too, just as a little bit of more of an outsider, I guess, perspective on this, is that you may be inclined to save a little bit of money and stay somewhere else, but I would highly encourage you not to. And there's a big reason why. Yeah, you could save a few bucks, but I think the fact of being off-site is going to remove you a bit from the activity that happens, just by a walk by or seeing somebody, sitting in the
Riding up in the
lounge or
elevator.
something. Yeah, it's like I can't, even quantify the value of, just hanging out with people, running into people unexpectedly, having a conversation here and there. You know, very unlike virtual, it can be interactive. You can talk with people in person. It's a lot of value that comes from that. Relationships get built, you know, that stand the test of time or help your business or help you as an individual understand more, learn more, or make more money. So I would just encourage you, you know, to not try to save, you know, $30 by saying somewhere else because you'll probably make that $30 back in relationships and beyond. So just a bit of a pitch there, a little bit of non-biased pitch there. Or maybe biased. Is that biased? Yeah, that might be biased. I don't know.
Experienced.
Experience. There you go. Yeah, learn from experience. Because I used to think that way. And then, yeah, once you kind of stay on campus, it's like, oh, okay, I don't know why I really hesitated on that before. I guess because I didn't know, right? Okay, then also I will mention they haven't made an announcement yet, but I do know that they're getting probably close to doing so for DNN Connect 2025. Um, I don't know definitively where it's going to be at. Last time I heard they were looking at maybe Spain or something. Is that right, Daniel? Was I right about that? I think it was Spain they were saying.
That is
No
what
one
I
said anything.
heard, but
David's
it was
just
a
pitching. That's
maybe.
where it should be.
Yeah, I know it wasn't a commitment or anything like that, so
Yeah,
please don't
exactly.
hold me to that. But I think that was the last I heard as far as where they're looking. But who knows? It may end up being somewhere else, like Croatia or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
They'll announce it at some point, but be sure to stay in touch with dnn-connect.org to see how that one's coming up because those are always wonderful events. Quite different. And gosh, who is that guy right there? That didn't even look like me. Okay. Sorry, I just realized that.
Be doing
Okay, I
a
think
lot for a while.
I think that's all for the announcements that I had. Is there anything that else needs to be highlighted that's been going on in the community?
I'll highlight something that's kind of important. If anyone is using Too Sexy 18.0 or 18.01, I highly encourage you to get to 18.02. There's a lot of very subtle things broken. Not all of them have been reported, but they have been fixed. They have a lot to do with the Angular front end, the UI for editing, and things that didn't save correctly. But 18.02 fixes almost everything that I found.
Oh, nice. Okay.
It's very solid. It's not an LTS, but I greatly prefer 18.02 over probably the last 5 or 6 versions right now.
Excellent. That's good to know. And for
If you're
those
on
who
18, you've
don't
got
know,
to.
he's referring to 2SXC. By 2.6, so you can get out this free open source offering. It looks like there's the release that you're referring to, 18.0.2.
Right.
Content management system essentially for DNN platform or Octane if you're on Octane. So another thing I just thought of is, Daniel, you may want to highlight
Yes.
this. I don't think we've even talked about this in a meetup anytime recently.
So DNN elements is something I started a couple years ago, which is web components that are not strictly made for DNN, but it's hopefully the components that will replace what we had for the common components that were tied into React. And basically they are standard compliant web components. So you can use them without any framework or with any framework you like. If you do Angular, React, whatever, Vue, they all work. They're pure web components. It's version 0 dot something because they're not final, but I've been using them in maybe 20 something ish private projects, and they've been saving a lot of coding. The most recent version 0.24 brings full form integration, which means that now you can build using advanced components a form that is contained within a form element, and you can actually validate the form itself instead of having to write a bunch of code to validate every single input. And they will automatically report errors and focus into the first invalid field. You have a way to reset the whole form without writing a single line of code. So you just define your validations directly in the fields. So that's the major highlight of this version. Not going to go through all the components, but we have cool stuff here like HTML editing. If any developers are looking for an HTML editor that is non-web forms and like full-fledged, so like this is like a paragraph in HTML. It's a rich text editor, and that's it. It just reports the value. Of course, there's plugins and stuff you can add, but they're very quick to implement if you need just the out-of-box experience. David, where you were earlier, there was a warning for breaking changes. So since we're in version 0, there's a couple things we're rethinking to. Our idea is to keep it as close as possible to the real HTML element. So a DNN button should be as much as possible as an HTML button. And for that reason, the form integration, we had to make a little breaking change here. So if anybody uses 0.23 or under, make sure you read the changes here because we deprecated type, gave it a different meaning, and in the next version, we're going to deprecate the form button type, which will become the new meaning of type. So if you use them, just make sure 0.24, 0.25, read the release notes correctly.
Thanks, Daniel. A lot of
Yeah,
work
welcome.
put into that to get all
Oh,
that
yeah.
form stuff working. It's pretty cool. And like I said, a lot of projects already being built with this, and it's a great model to use with no framework dependencies. Awesome.
I really
Which,
appreciated seeing the examples get added to the thing you were just showing.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Bottom.
yeah, in the
That's
docs, yeah.
excellent. Seeing them all together on one page, big difference, makes a great impression on how these work.
Fantastic.
and they drive the new resource manager also, by the way. And one of the next steps for DNN is to update it there to use that.
And they do automatically use and are aware of and consume the variables that are coming in DNN 10, the root CSS
Yes.
variables.
So the only thing that makes them DNN is that there will be DNN branded CSS variables, and DNN 10 will come with a UI where you can define your brand colors, and any third party can consume those values. So if I want to build a module and use your branding, I consume the DNN variables.
Yeah,
But
if
it's
I
not
build it,
required either.
not
So,
required, exactly. It's
so it's not a
available.
hard dependency.
Still, it's the right way to do it.
Yeah, it's just we're providing the information. You do as you wish, but that allows finally for teams and modules to come together with the same branding. Yeah.
Instead of spending time to overwrite and force
Yeah.
things to match, they have an opportunity to match more from
Exactly.
the start.
Yep, exactly.
You mean all those hours I spent on my DNN reset? Never mind.
That's right.
Well, we spent quite a bit of time here on the beginning part. Hopefully, Ryan, you had time to get your screens organized there. So I'll turn it over to you for your Inspector Clouseau or Pink Panther or Inspector Gadget. I'm not really sure which one you're going to be tonight, but looking forward to it.
You know, we're going to talk about that specifically. Let's see.
Oh, nice, nice.
Screen share. Number 1. Okay. One of the things that I enjoy about the Southern Fried DNN user group is that we are a collection of different types of people who are involved with DNN. And if you think about the people who are watching this on playback later on, they're stumbling upon the pages of the So Fried website or of the YouTube video channel after the fact. They might be searching for answers. They might be passing by a topic and seeing something that's interesting, and they kind of come and get connected in. But we have multiple types of users and viewers who are here with us in the So Fri community. Many of the people who are online tonight are developers that are spending time making changes, improvements, and updates to the core platform of DNN community. But then we have integrators, folks like at my company, we consider ourselves integrators. We've built some modules, we've built some things that we've released, but that's not our forte. We build and create solutions for client systems with DNN as our application development platform is what I describe to people. So we build solutions with DNN. And then, we also have users and people in the So Fri community who are users of DNN. They are content editors, they're administrators. They may be host users or administrators, but they don't spend a lot of time on the server. Maybe they know enough to know where their DNN instance is hosted. They might go in and do something by FTP. Maybe they get into remote desktop, but they'd much rather stay off the server and let the hosting companies provide support for them and do things for them. And so tonight's main topic that we're going to go through comes out of a conversation that I had by text message to help solve and investigate troubles on a DNN instance that I couldn't log into. It was one that I wasn't even able to see other than a few screenshots that I'll show in just a few minutes. And it did or created a scenario that happens sometimes where you need to troubleshoot a DNN instance or think about what's going on from very simple little descriptions that are given to you by a colleague or by someone at a conference who says, hey, I had this one problem. And then you think, well, we joked and we said it earlier in the meeting before we started, did you try turning it off and on again? Always one of the best starting points is, hey, let's reboot it. Let's clear the cache and restart the application pool. Did that fix the problem? Is it
Get
good
out
now?
and get back in.
But let's kick this off, and I'll show you a little bit more about what we're going to be talking about as we go through this. But the point of tonight's meeting and the run through is to share with you something that I found enjoyable as I was armchair removed 2 persons from the person working on the server, armchair trying to help solve problems within a DNN instance as they were migrating. So here we go. Let's jump into the presentation material. So for this, we are talking about migration investigation. I call this sleuthing and troubleshooting a DNN instance migration. Because what we're talking about is a time when a colleague of mine, sometimes a client, sometimes a collaborator, we have a long history of working on DNN related things together, and they had a DNN instance that they had some trouble with, and it began for me as a set of text messages where they asked questions to see if I could help rescue or solve the problems that they were experiencing. And we're going to dive into those. And we're going to talk about some of my testing steps. And these, again, may be something that, for some of the folks who are online with us tonight, it's just the default, method that they think of when they're troubleshooting. But I can think of many users, especially folks that I meet at conventions where they're users of DNN or they're middle level IT managers, and they don't really understand everything that DNN does. Maybe DNN is the only .NET application that they have to manage, and everything else they have are other types of systems. So they're not sure how to troubleshoot. And that's what we're going to go through. We're going to talk about troubleshooting methods that I go through in order so that I can figure out where we are in the spectrum of possible problems or things we need to look into. And that brings us to the theme of the meeting, because it's about sleuthing, troubleshooting, and investigating. So whether you think of your favorite investigators and detectives as Sherlock Holmes or Hercule Poirot, or maybe you're a little bit more like Columbo or Batman or one of my kids' favorites, Detective, then
Monk.
you need to recognize that what we're going to get into
I
is
am
what you'll
Batman.
see in these entertaining shows, which is sleuthing or figuring out problems that can sometimes be entertaining, especially if you're puzzling through it. So we stop off for just a brief minute to mention about myself, and I did a second ago, but here with the More Creative Company, we consider ourselves integrators. So we certainly provide hosting and set up and work with a lot of our own DNN instances, but we also inherit DNN instances from other companies and organizations. And we don't always know what the starting point was of that instance, but we are now receiving it 6 years down the line, and we are troubleshooting and figuring out and upgrading or downgrading, or I call it side grading, evoke instances over to DNN community. There could be a mixture of reasons, but some of these troubleshooting steps are the same things that that you'd go through in any of those different types of situations. So let's set up the original reason for this presentation. Was back a couple of months ago, I got a text message in from one of my good friends, and they said, "Hey, Ryan, I had to move our DNN website to another server. I think I have everything in place, but I can't browse the website. I'm trying to browse it on localhost." Okay. All right. That's about like 3 different things there that I wonder what they're talking about that might need some investigation to figure out what they're doing. So they start off by saying, "Hey, here's the error." And then they don't send anything at all. There's no screenshot or nothing else that comes on. And I said, well, localhost isn't always enabled. Maybe you need to turn on localhost in the host file. But you know what? She must have sent me a screenshot in another message. Otherwise, because I do have some screenshots in this. Anyway, so she sent me, and I said, well, it looks like you're typing in www.localhost. So we need to remove www. So let's dig into let's dig into the problems here. And I said, the other thing is let's just ping localhost to make sure it's working. That's one of the easiest ways that we can get into it. So you can see here the problem is, hey, I can't browse the website. And she mentions that she's trying to do so over localhost. Some of my first thoughts are, what are you browsing and how are you doing it? And is localhost even working on this server? Do we have to turn it on? Maybe we should leave DNN in the browser and we should try to ping it. And she says, well, I don't have anything else. I try to browse to *:port 80, and I get an error. And when I Google this error, it's talking about a rewrite rule. So I'm like, okay, we're all over the place here with the things that she's mentioning. And I say, well, hold on. What are we doing and why? Is this a long-term thing? Is this short-term just to get a copy of the site that you can describe? And she says, no. This is not a new instance on the same server. This is a brand new server, and we need to move over. And one of the things that she mentions there is that the old server was a Windows 2012 server, and their IT team or security maintenance people basically said they would not support and cover them on a Windows 2012 server. They needed to get onto a new server. So that's the point. That's the starting point of this troubleshooting and investigation, in which we dive in. We dive in from here. So I'm going to run through some of the steps and some of the results that that she did. And I encourage you, folks that are on here with me tonight, I may throw the question out there and see what you think about it. But chime in with your thoughts. We'll make it a little bit of a
42.
Heckling welcome, and peanut gallery acceptable.
42.
42. Good answer.
Reboot.
But one of the things she says here is, localhost isn't allowing her to browse to the website. So what are a few things from the peanut gallery that you might think of as your person says, hey, localhost isn't working? What might you look into?
Tell me exactly what you typed.
Portal alias.
Yeah, did you type it? Is it localhost all one word? Is it local.host? What'd you do? That's a good one, yeah. What'd you say, Daniel? You said
Portal alias.
Aliases? That comes up step number 7 here in a minute. We'll get into that.
IIS bindings.
IIS bindings also really good. So one of the first things that I told them was, we need to test localhost. Is localhost even running? Is it not? I don't know. So first off, they need to understand where to go, whether on the server or whether on their own developed machine, to get to the localhost file and make sure that they have a record for localhost, because There are security settings that you can apply just across the board with a click of a button in different security lockdown tools, and they will turn off features that you might have had there 6 months ago. So on that server, localhost might have been working previously, but it doesn't mean it's working today. So, one of the things I mentioned is let's open up your machine's hosts file and let's see if localhost has commented out or if it's active, because if it's commented out, there's nothing you can do for that. Additionally, even if I see that it's here and it's active, I want to see it. I'm going to ping it. So that was one of the troubleshooting steps that I could describe pretty easily to my friend here. They work on servers. They work on Active Directory administration. They work inside of DNN. They're just not server people. They're not a hosting company. They're not an IT administrator. They are a jack of all trades. And so I said, well, let's ping this. So for example, pinging from my own machine here, I just do a ping of localhost and I get some responses. Versus when she pinged localhost, she didn't get anything. And so she didn't get any responses at all from localhost. And my next thought with her, because what she was doing was not getting any response on localhost, I said, well, that's really odd. I mean, is IIS running? What is IIS stopped? What's going on here within the site? Maybe there's something else wrong and localhost isn't connected. Daniel mentioned the bindings. Maybe localhost and port 80, just as a general blanket response, isn't going to this DNN site and isn't going to localhost. Let's take a look at it. And I said, well, how was this server set up? And she said, well, our IT team just spun up this server and gave it to me, and they gave me remote desktop access. Does anyone want to guess what the next problem was that when she said the IT team gave me a server and they gave me remote desktop access?
Features and roles.
So I said, could you do a little bit of troubleshooting? There are a couple of tools in Windows that let you do troubleshooting of IIS. Maybe IIS isn't running properly. And so we start doing a couple of things, and very quickly it becomes evident this site does not have IIS installed. This new server, does not have IIS installed and prepared to run and display websites, to run ASP.NET. It's a raw box, and it has not been prepared to host a website. And that happens often enough. Somebody says, okay, we got you a server. We spun up a new machine for you. Well, did you prepare it? Is it ready to host a website? So one of my favorite articles that I'll go back to, it's on the DNN corporate website. Maybe we should bring a copy of it over to DNN community, because that's probably where it really should live. And there's probably the same information inside of DNN docs if I think about it. But I always go back to this article. It's just one of my go-tos that I just have memorized from years ago. And it is an article that goes through the setup processes, basic requirements that are needed to run DNN on a Windows server, and more specifically, the steps to go through to turn on the correct features that are needed in IIS to run a website, number one, but also run an ASP.NET website. So with a couple of quick steps through, I was able to pass her an article and say, okay, I don't think these things are turned on or enabled. I don't see the website. I don't see IIS actually running a website. Let's turn those features on. So she was able to follow the article and come through several steps. Again, I'm not looking at the screen with her. I'm not remote desktop. It's kind of like she texts me and she says, what do I do next? I'm like, well, find this article. And then I go have supper. And then I get 4 text messages and I come back. And she goes, okay, I did that. What next? I'm like, oh, okay. Well, so, she goes through these steps. And again, this is this article from DNN Software from years ago. But it goes through and walks through the steps of not only turning on and enabling the correct features within IIS, so that then when it restarts, it is ready to run everything that you need. But there's also some good information in here about the application pools and how to make sure that your application pool is given all the right permissions to run the rest of the website folder and file features that the application pool needs control over. So we go through that and we get IIS running. And I said, okay, now we need to test and show that IIS is running. And this is where I have a trick that I like to use often enough. Sure how well that shows up. I might zoom in on a little bit more. But I said, you know, now that IIS is running, we need to test a few things. And yes, you could try and load the DNN website and see what you get. But the DNN website is running in IIS. It's running in ASP.NET. It has a database connection. And it's all of DNN all there together. And you've got to have all those things working correctly for it to load a page without an error. And I think that many times troubleshooting or sleuthing or figuring things out starts by isolating pieces off to test them individually so that you can figure out what's what. And so my suggestion to her first off was, okay, don't even try and load the website. I want you to load 403-3.gif. And I'm bringing that one up on screen here. In the root of a DNN instance is a GIF file. It has been there ever since DNN 3. Maybe it was there before, but it was there from day one of the very first DNN instance I ever worked with. And it's a GIF. The reason I like to load this as a testing tool is if it loads, that tells me that IIS is running and is prepared to load and present to me a standard hard-coded HTML website. It means that it is ready to go to load a website and there are no problems. If it doesn't load, I know there are other problems. But I'm not wondering, oh, was it the database? No, this is a GIF. There's nothing database related. Oh, was it ASP.NET? No, not in any normal circumstances. So this is a very low-level basic request that can show in a browser, and if it doesn't load, you've got other IIS problems, you've got folder problems, you've got permission problems, you've got anonymous user problems, you've got other kinds of IIS level problems. But if 403-3.gif loads, you can move on, you can move forward. So I said, okay, tell me about this 403-3.gif. Is it loading? And she says, yes, it's loading. I'm like, success. Okay. We know that we set up IIS correctly and it's running. Okay, now I want you to load keepalive.aspx. And she says, wait, what? Keepalive.aspx? And I said, yes. She's like, okay, I get the date and time. And I'm like, good, thank you. The reason I want to load keepalive.aspx is it's another file that's in the root. It is a simple .NET page that simply returns get date stamp. It's loading the date and the time, and that's it. It's ASP.NET. It means that the web config has to be loaded correctly without any errors for it to load ASP.NET, but this single file does nothing with the .NET Nuke database. So if there are database connection problems or username or password problems with the database, if there's just connection problems getting to the database, you sidestep all of that by just testing this part of ASP.NET code by itself by loading keepalive.aspx. If it doesn't load and it gives you big yellow error messages, you know that there's something else going on and it has nothing to do with IIS and it has nothing to do with the database. It has to do specifically with something that is about the program. And again, if it's the keepalive.aspx, there's nothing else .NET Nuke related going on. It has to be something about .NET itself, the web config, or something that's a very basic level issue or problem with something that's ASP.NET related. So I said, does it work? And she says, I get the date and time. Great. That means it's working. Good deal. So now we can move forward to the next things. So she says, okay, I load the web page and I have a problem because it's telling me there's a database connection issue. Fantastic. We're moving, kind of along in this series of text threads where she's asking me questions. And she says, okay, wait, now Edge says there's a DB connection problem. Okay. So you browse the image and it loads. Yes. Okay. So now you're loading the home page and it doesn't have permissions problems of loading .NET, but it has a database permission problem. Okay. Maybe we've got the wrong username or the wrong password, or we're connecting to the wrong name of the database or the wrong location of the database. Who knows what we're having a problem with? But there's a quick test. And if I was saying before that I'd like to isolate things out, that counts with the database too. There are plenty of times where I feel like everything is correct with the database and the username and the password, but I think there's a problem with .NET Nuke. I think there's a problem in my web.config, or I think there's a problem with the .NET Nuke instance reaching the database. Maybe it's a port problem. Maybe it's a location problem. I want to test the connection strings just by themselves. I don't want .NET Nuke involved if I can help it. I just want to test the connection strings. So there's a good article that describes how you can create a database zoomed out into the wrong thing. A UDL file for a connection string. And what this does is it lets you create a blank file that can live on your Windows desktop or on your hard drive that you can then double click and enter information for a database connection string just for the purpose of testing that database connection outside of DNN and outside of any other programming or any other thing involved. If this works, it allows you to confirm your IP address or server, SQL Server name that you're connecting to is correct, your username is correct, your password is correct, and it has rights to get data out of that database. So this is isolating very specifically the ability to test that username and password. So this article from Microsoft describes to you how to create a UDL file. And there are a few different ways that you can do these tests, but this is the one that I do most often, which is to simply create a blank text file that you put on the machine, and you call it whatever you want, purplebunnyfeet.udl. And once it becomes a UDL file, it is then a file which you can double click and launch to then, like I said before, enter the information and test your database connection strings. It doesn't save them. It doesn't do anything else with them other than that. You just plug them in and you test and you go. So as she was going through that, that's where she was finding that the SQL Server located on another machine, she thought that it had access, that this new location had access to reach it, but it didn't. The correct ports weren't open, or it was something about network connectivity of one reaching the other one, but they had to go through some work to make it so that that database could be reached by this new server location. But then once it did, she had different problems. And she said, okay, you know what? DNN is working now, and I'm able to browse DNN, and everything looks correct, but I need to do some updates, and I am trying to upload some images where I want to upload new logos or upload new styles of something, and sometimes it's taking, but other times it's just not, and the old file is still there and it's not overriding with the new file. And I swear I thought I uploaded a file, and then I go back and I look and there's just nothing there. And so I said, well, you know, in what way did you build your website? In what way did you put your files into this folder? Did you first apply the application pool security permissions to the folders before you put the content in? Because if not, that application pool doesn't have rights over these folders. You might find that DNN is working properly, but you're having weird hijinks with files because they're not uploading or overriding. Maybe you're starting to install a module and it doesn't exactly install correctly. Could be a file permissions problem. So that's the next thing we dug into. And I said, well, let's go over this topic just to give the idea. When you are setting up a website in IIS, And you're going to put existing content into it, whether that is content from a site that you're migrating or you're doing a brand new DNN install. One of the best ways to set all of these permissions is to do it while the folder is empty. It's perfect. It's absolute. You put the permissions in and they're applied in a fraction of a second. Versus if you have a 16 gig folder full of files and you want to work on applying these permissions, then after you apply these permissions, you're going to have to sit and wait for it to go through and apply those permissions all the way down to all those folders and files. And in my experience, IIS or Windows Server can get tired, and it will sometimes just stop or not apply those permissions all the way down that you expect them to. So my advice when we're setting this up is start with an empty folder. Create a brand new empty folder. Have that be the folder for your website. And in the basic settings for that website, pay attention to the name of the application pool. Here in this example where we're in the middle of doing some side grade work, moving evoke content instances over to DNN community, one of the things that you do is you compare against and you share elements from that target DNN instance version that you are trying to reach. So here I've set up on a server for one, a DNN 9312 and a DNN 910 instance. So that's why I've kind of named them this way. Anyways, so the application pool here is going to be called dnn910.local is the name of this application pool. So once that folder is set up and it's empty, I go in and I apply the correct permissions to that folder right there and then when it is empty. So the 910 folder, I right click, I choose properties, I come over to security. At that point, I've got a list of all of the existing security elements that are in this, and I say, okay, I want to go ahead and add in a new role. And at that point, I'm going to click add, and I type in the name of that application pool, and I need to give that application pool full control over the folders and files. Again, this is very common for those of us who are working in DNN all of the time, but you might not realize a couple of things about this. Here we're doing it at setup time. But again, if someone else is managing your server and they're clicking buttons, especially if they're using tools for security and lockdown, or they are using different Microsoft tools to do a security audit and click to perform suggested security changes, you can find full control removed when you had it in place 6 months ago. So it's something where whenever I am called into kind of work in a site that, is on a server that I don't have management over or other people have been working on it, I will sometimes start that project by reapplying these permissions because it'll just save me headaches down the road when I'm doing DNN upgrades or uploading new modules and something's just weird and it's not working right. Well, it's because these permissions have gotten out of whack and they're not fully applied with full control all the way down. So it's something that I might have to do recurringly. But again, if you have a chance and you're setting up in a migration, start with that empty folder, give full control to that application pool, and then copy in all of your files. When you do that, then as each file is going in, it's going to inherit the correct permissions and be in good shape. So for this particular client example, I go through with her and I explain how to get to these steps. We look at what the name of the application pool is supposed to be. And then I say, okay, click add, and what you're going to do is you're going to reapply the permissions all the way down, and then you're going to wait while he goes through to do all of the files. And I think with this example for her, it might have taken 10 or 20 minutes to go through and finish applying to all of the gigs of files that were present. But once it was done, that was the end of her problems. She was able to upload a new logo, maybe modify their skin and do other types of things through the DNN interface to update files and it not block her because of security problems or permission problems. Okay, so we kind of finish with the last problem that she was having, which maybe these are out of order. Maybe this one came before the other one. But she did say, that she had to change the domain name away from localhost to be a subdomain of their published domain name because they needed it to be tested by people outside the system, and that makes perfect sense. So we got into two problems pretty quickly. She changed the name, and she said, "Okay, well now nothing's showing. I've put in the website domain name. I can see it. It's there in the bindings." But it's not loading in the website. What have I forgotten? What have I done wrong? And I think that's one that Daniel mentioned earlier. Everybody seen that one plenty of times before? We're near the end of the run through, so we're also going to do questions, heckling, or comments in a few minutes. So we give you a chance to wake up, everybody. So in this situation, she came up with a new name and made sure that it was in the IIS bindings. But this is a very famous screen that shows if the domain name that you're trying to call is not in .NET Nuke. It's not in the database portal alias listings. So you can see that the site is finding a DNN instance. It's getting a general DNN fave icon. It's getting to the right instance because the IP address is sending it to the right location, and the IIS bindings are making go to the right application to your DNN website. But now this is a response from DNN, and it says, "I don't know what to do with this. That's a URL I don't recognize, and it's not one of mine. Where's it got its list of one of mine? It's in the portal alias table." So in this situation, she sent me a screenshot, and I said, "Oh, that's a piece of cake. What you missed was updating this record, either adding it or changing one of your other records in your database so that your portal aliases now had this new name." And she goes, "Oh, that's right. You're right. I forgot that step." So she performs that step, and then she gets into and loads the website, and kind of moved on from there. It is, though, kind of like the end of any adventure story. Because it's kind of never ending. It kind of keeps going on and on and on. That's actually the way the story of the Princess Bride finishes, because they ride off into the sunset. But really in the book it says they ride into the sunset, and then one of their horses threw a shoe, and then they got chased and went the wrong direction, and then they went up this hill and they had to reconvene, and then and that's the way these kinds of things go on, because I think afterwards she then had problems with the SSL certificate, and then she had another problem when they published. But I hope, at least by sharing this, this information, I helped share a kind of a fun weekend that I had trying to help sleuth or figure out problems to help somebody as they were, doing work for their own clients and trying to get their sites moving and moving from one server to another, but having nothing provided to them. They were given a server that wasn't ready to host websites, that had the localhost commented out, that wasn't ready to connect to the database. They didn't know any of those things, and their IT department just said, "Well, here's a server. Here you go. That's what you need." So hopefully that was somewhat entertaining, and if you find yourself in those kinds of situations, you can reach out to us, any of the folks that are here on tonight's meeting, any of those in So Fri, and into the different support locations for DNN, which include the Discord location, which includes the forum and locations on the DNN community website, or catch us anytime here at Southern Fried DNN, or at a conference up ahead at DNN Summit. This kind of sleuthing and this kind of help is this kind of stuff we do for each other all the time. So I open it up. Any questions or thoughts, folks? Any other similar experiences you've had when you're sleuthing something and you find that there's a real simple solution? Oh, that's right. There's no gas in the tank. That's why it's not driving. Would love to share and do a couple of minutes of that, and then I'll turn off.
Well, I thought that was very helpful and useful, and
Yeah.
it's good. The only one that I was going to comment on is just a recommendation. I heard you say giving full rights to whatever user account's running the app pool.
The
I
application.
would highly recommend just changing that to be modify moving forward instead of full. Just from a security standpoint, because they're the same as far as permissions go, except for full means that person owns the account. So you may want to modify your, pun intended, modify the
Oh, yeah.
steps there just a little bit, because DNN
That's an
only
interesting thing.
requires modify.
Yeah, do you know if that's changed over time as a
No,
recommendation?
no, but the
Because-
instructions, the old instructions and so forth always said full.
Yeah.
And I think that has always been wrong, really. So
A modicum of security that what you're describing is that full isn't necessarily necessary, and as long as you have modify, that should be sufficient. Because in the end,
it's
that's
not
all you need.
necessary at all. Yeah, it's not that it's not
get it.
necessarily necessary. It really isn't. Like you don't want to do that because that gives that account ownership, so that if any other vulnerability on the side, happens and
Take
that
advantage
account,
of it.
they could actually do more damage, right? Because
for
they own
sure.
the account.
Yeah.
Yeah, you always want to give the minimum needed. Not that it's an issue out of itself, but combined with other issues, it could be. So,
Exactly. Yeah, but it was great. It was good, good techniques there. I really liked seeing that.
Yeah, I
Something
just
I-
wanted to compliment you and point out one thing specifically. When you're approaching a situation that already has 6 or more problems, you have to look at it as layers, and you, with your experience, you were able to walk the person through layer by layer. Because I have a lot of people who just like, oh, I have this one experience point where I remember I did this, and they go fix it, and it doesn't fix anything because
Right.
they have no idea that they're 4 layers deep
Right.
in the
Or it might
mess.
fix that one thing, but they also have
Yeah.
these other things that are
So I
problems too,
love
and they
the
got to fix
fact
all
that
of
your
them.
approach was to start at the outside and work your
Mhm.
way down.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure
Very
what
well
I
done.
heard Ryan say was that anytime that a client texts me and wants me to help them with a complex issue, that I could send them to Ryan.
That's what I heard.
heard.
That's what I heard.
Oh man, yeah, my wife will kill me. Yeah, but I think that we
Asynchronous
all get.
texting support. How may we help you?
Yeah.
I think we all get into that problem with seeing the elephant, and it's one giant problem, or you need to fix something, and it appears that it's one big thing, and you need a way to divide it up or to tackle it in pieces that's not just random. You need to step into it in some kind of order.
Yeah, I love referring to it as the Shrek situation. It's always layers.
Right. Right.
Anyone remembers that?
Yeah. Sometimes with that idea of just turn everything off and then turn it on a piece at a time. Okay. Use the app offline, turn the website off. Did it turn off? Wait a minute. I stopped the website. This error is still loading. I'm not on the right server. Who knows? You can figure some things out sometimes. Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody.
There's a link on a UAT or test site that goes directly to the production site, and you clicked it an hour ago and didn't notice. You're on the wrong one.
Yeah.
The other one people don't realize is the point where you're copying the files in. Totally agree with you that get the permissions right first when the folder's empty. But the one people don't realize, and I stumble on after the fact, is they move the files. That doesn't work. Move will actually bring over NTFS permissions you have to copy. Even if that means later on you have to go back and delete your source folder because it's taking up too much space, which does happen to people. But move is not the same as copy.
My brother Dustin is a database administrator, and he has a different path of training than I have had with servers and management of IT related things. And he uses move religiously because there are situations in which he won't get confused about where something is and where it's going to. And I explained to him, I can never use move. I have to absolutely not use move every time. And so he doesn't understand why I'm over here, control X and control C and control V. And he's like, no. And I'm like, yes, I have to for this purpose. Exactly.
Experienced learning. The burned hand teaches best. That's how I
Yep.
learned everything. I did it wrong more than once.
The bird. hand. All right. Well, that is a good roundtable and some good good information, hopefully, that others can benefit from. I'll share some of the links and the information when we post this up into the So Fri website, so anybody else can dig a little deeper into some of those other tools. I may also post a couple of others because they didn't come into play with this scenario. But just as I was running through individual things to get through, okay, image is loading, .NET is loading, okay, now database is loading. I do the same thing with a couple of other things, including some testing of the SSL certificate. And if there's some weird problems that sometimes happen with the server's not prepared to respond with, you know, and I don't just mean TLS type things, but just isn't prepared to run an SSL certificate correctly. I've had that happen before and some ways to test that. But email also, SMTP, I run into plenty of enough situations where I just want to have a very simple way to test, does this username and password actually work? I used to do it in Outlook, but now there are other ways that I can do that, and I think I'll put that into the tools and the notes that I post when we post this article.
And also thank you for reminding me of Prezi. I'm always looking for alternatives to PowerPoint, and I literally forgot about Prezi over the last 5 years.
Here,
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about it completely.
Prezi is one of my favorites. I've done a number of DNN related presentations in Prezi over time, and it's a favorite for just making dynamic type things. I enjoy the zoom and the moving around.
I never get tired of the zoom effect, and you'd think everyone would.
It's also so smooth. You know, one of the first ones I built years ago was for Xmod Pro to kind of show off things. And I remember at the time Prezi was so new, people weren't familiar with it. They'd never really seen things with it.
Did you see that the date was just on the screen? You just showed 2012.
Yes, probably. It was quite a long time ago. So, you know, this moving and this sliding instead of slides going through in PowerPoint. And this one is one in which I rotate, I zoom, I do all kinds of things in this presentation, and I love playing with that type of dynamic stuff within.
I can't believe I tricked you into showing this.
Yeah, so these are examples of things that that we would do. This was one of my favorites, but I did this one I have always enjoyed as well. This was for Baltimore and DNN Summit, and I made it like a newspaper for the session that I was doing. And so as you go forward, you move around and you zoom in and out of the newspaper. So we're right next to the headlines and we're coming over. So there's just a lot of fun things that keep attention as you're going into the details.
Nice.
But yeah, Prezi is definitely a favorite. Probably the only downside is that everyone does have to make money, and they've removed a lot of their features to their paid version. So there's some things that you have to specifically do with their paid version, or just think around the basics if you can use the free version. Okay, well, I'll turn off screen share. Thank you everybody for sitting through that. Hopefully didn't put anyone to sleep too much. And like you said, you can always hit me for free tech support apparently.
Via text.
Free tech support. Whoa.
Wow.
Oh, you heard it here, people.
Put the phone number in the video.
Yeah. Exactly. Ryan, that was awesome. Thank you.
I start reading off David's phone number. Yes. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Pleasure to put this together. And again, with some of our different meetings that we have, we come up with ideas for meetings from things that bother us or things that are broken that we wish were different, or situations we've had. And I thought this one, as I was going through it, I thought this would make a good So Fri. I can tell people, how I walked through this idea. Maybe it'll do somebody else some good in the future too. So If you have other ideas for So Fri meetings, as you saw, we've kind of booked out the rest of the year, but we are always looking for new sessions, new speakers, updates on old sessions from familiar faces. We do this by and for and with the community. So please think about what ways you can pitch in and put together some ideas for us in 2025. We'll all be there in person for DNN Summit. And that'll also be a fresh time for us to twist elbows and bend ears to try and get some new folks in here to present for Southern Fried. But if you have some ideas, please reach out on Discord, DNN community, on the So Fri website, or anywhere else we all hang out. And David and I will be glad
or
to get you
text
on.
Ryan. He will respond right away.
That's right.
Yeah, be sure to join us on November the 21st for what is going to be an epic meetup there. We're going to talk about utilizing DNN as a CMS in 2024 and won't give any spoilers on it, but various people from the community are going to be involved and be able to kind of help navigate, some of the frequent, it's kind of in the same vein as what Ryan's recent blog was, on he was mentioned out there, but just really kind of focusing on, what are the strengths? What are the areas? Why would you choose DNN and kind of the things like that? So some of the challenges that you run in when looking at other content management systems as well. So be sure to join us. And I hope everybody has a great night. If you're joining us on YouTube, thanks for watching on YouTube. And hope you enjoy the content. Comment below and let us know if you have ideas for content, or at least at minimum, take 2 seconds to hit the like button, because it helps our stuff be a little bit more discoverable for others to be able to be helped by. Thanks a lot, everybody.
right.
Have a good night.
Great.
Thank you,
Thanks a
everyone.
lot.
Have a good
Good
one.
to see you. See you again next month.
Bye-bye.